Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. What happens when your husband hands you a thick envelope, his hand steady, his eyes cold, and says, "It's time to let the truth speak for itself"? Can you really rewrite the story when the evidence is in black and white, and everyone you love is watching? The day I got served with divorce and custody papers was the day I realized my secrets were never as safe as I thought. I should have known something was wrong when Simon started marking his calendar. My husband had never been the type to track my schedule before. Hell, he barely remembered his own doctor's appointments. But suddenly, there were little red X's marking every night I worked late. Each one felt like an accusation scrawled in ink. "Another team event tonight?" he asked, not looking up from his coffee as I grabbed my purse from the kitchen counter. His voice was neutral, but I caught the edge underneath. "Marketing retreat planning session," I replied smoothly, checking my reflection in the hallway mirror. I'd gotten better at lying over the past few months. Practice makes perfect after all. "You know how demanding this new campaign is?" Simon nodded slowly, still not meeting my eyes. "Right, the campaign." Our daughter Mila sat at the breakfast table, pushing cereal around her bowl without eating. At 8 years old, she was too perceptive for her own good. Her dark eyes, Simon's eyes, flicked between us like she was watching a tennis match where nobody was winning. "Will you be home to read to me tonight, Mommy?" she asked quietly. The guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. "Daddy will read to you, sweetheart. I'll probably be late again." "You're always late now," Mila whispered, so softly I almost missed it. Simon's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just reached over and squeezed Mila's hand. "We'll read 2 chapters tonight, okay, princess?" I kissed the top of Mila's head, inhaling her shampoo scent, strawberry and innocence. "Mommy's working hard so we can have nice things," I told her, the familiar justification rolling off my tongue. The drive to work felt longer than usual. My phone buzzed with a text from Darren. "Can't wait to see you tonight. That little cafe you mentioned?" I smiled despite myself. Darren Lowe was everything Simon wasn't: spontaneous, charming, full of compliments and attention. He made me feel alive again, like I was more than just a wife and mother going through the motions. At the office, I threw myself into actual work, answering emails and reviewing campaign materials. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did have legitimate projects. But when 5 o'clock rolled around, instead of heading home to my family, I found myself touching up my lipstick in the bathroom mirror. "Hot date?" asked Jessica from accounting, appearing behind me. "Just drinks with the team," I said casually. Another lie, but what was one more? The Willow Cafe was dimly lit and intimate, the kind of place where married women shouldn't be having drinks with male co-workers. Darren was already there, looking handsome in his navy blazer, a glass of wine waiting for me. "You look incredible," he said, as I slid into the booth across from him. "That color is amazing on you." I'd chosen the emerald green dress specifically because Simon had never complimented me in it. "Thank you. It's nice to be appreciated." We talked about work, about dreams, about anything except the wedding ring I'd slipped into my purse before walking in. Darren had a way of making me feel like the most interesting woman in the world. When he laughed at my stories, when he leaned forward to catch every word, I remembered what it felt like to be desired. "Your husband's a lucky man," Darren said eventually, swirling his wine. "Sometimes I wonder if he even notices I'm there anymore," I replied, surprised by the bitterness in my own voice. "We're like roommates who happen to share a kid." It wasn't entirely true. Simon still kissed me goodbye every morning, still asked about my day. But it felt routine, comfortable in a way that made me feel invisible. With Darren, I felt seen. My phone buzzed, a text from Simon. "Mila asking when you'll be home. Should I tell her you'll miss bedtime again?" The guilt flared, but I typed back, "Important client meeting ran long. Kiss her goodnight for me." Another lie. They were coming so easily now. When I finally got home at nearly 11, the house was dark except for the porch light Simon had left on for me. I slipped off my heels in the entryway, trying not to make noise on the hardwood floors. "How was the meeting?" Simon's voice came from the living room, making me jump. He was sitting in his recliner, still fully dressed, a takeout container from our favorite Chinese place on the side table. Cold lo mein, probably. The sight of it made my chest tight. "Productive," I said carefully. "Sorry I'm so late. You know how these things go." "Actually, I don't." Simon stood up slowly, and I noticed how tired he looked. When had those lines appeared around his eyes? "I've never had a job that required this many evening meetings." "Civil engineering is different from marketing," I said, moving toward the stairs. "The client demands are Araminta." The way he said my name stopped me cold. "We need to talk, soon." I turned to face him, forcing a smile. "Of course. This weekend, maybe, once this campaign settles down." Simon stared at me for a long moment, and I had the uncomfortable feeling he could see right through me. "Sure," he said finally. "This weekend." I climbed the stairs on shaking legs, pausing outside Mila's room. Her door was cracked open, and I could see her small form curled under her princess comforter. On her nightstand was a drawing she'd made at school, a family of 3 stick figures. The mommy figure was noticeably smaller than the others, almost like an afterthought. In our bedroom, Simon was already under the covers, his back to my side of the bed. I changed into my pajamas quietly, my mind racing. Maybe I was being paranoid. Simon was probably just stressed about work, about money, about normal married couple things. But as I lay in the dark, listening to his careful, measured breathing, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The red X's on his calendar weren't random. They were evidence. And Simon, methodical Simon, didn't collect evidence unless he planned to use it. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of secret texts and stolen moments. Darren and I had fallen into a routine: coffee before work, lunch when we could manage it, drinks after hours when I could manufacture an excuse. Each meeting felt like a small rebellion against the suffocating predictability of my home life. "You seem different lately," my sister Lila said over lunch at the Willow Cafe. We'd chosen a table by the window, where the afternoon sun highlighted the worry lines creasing her forehead. "Happier, but also, I don't know. Distracted." I stirred my salad absently, thinking about Darren's text from that morning. "Thinking about you. Can't focus on this presentation." "Just busy with work," I replied, the standard deflection I'd perfected. "This new campaign is consuming my life." "How's Simon handling all the late nights?" The question hit closer to home than I liked. "He's fine. You know Simon. Steady as a rock, never complains." It wasn't entirely true. Simon had been asking more questions lately, his eyes following me as I got ready for my supposed work events. Yesterday, I'd caught him scrolling through his phone with a frown, and when I'd asked what was wrong, he'd just shaken his head and said, "Nothing important." "And Mila?" The mention of my daughter sent a familiar stab of guilt through my chest. "She's 8, Lila. She barely notices when I'm gone." Another lie. Mila had started clinging to Simon more, following him around the house like a lost puppy. Her latest school art project, a family portrait, had shown Mommy as a tiny figure in the corner, while Daddy loomed large in the center, holding Mila's hand. "Maybe you should slow down a little," Lila suggested gently. "Make sure you're not missing too much of her childhood." I was saved from answering by my phone buzzing. Darren's name flashed on the screen. "Free for coffee. Need to see your beautiful face." My pulse quickened. "Actually, I need to run. Work emergency." Lila's expression shifted, something unreadable flickering across her features. "Another one?" "You know how it is in marketing," I said, already standing and gathering my purse. "Crisis management never sleeps." I met Darren at a small coffee shop across town, far from anywhere Simon or his friends might venture. He was waiting in a corner booth, looking agitated. "We need to talk," he said as I slid in across from him. My stomach dropped. Those 4 words never led anywhere good. "What's wrong?" "This thing between us, it's getting complicated." Darren ran his hands through his hair, avoiding my eyes. "People at work are starting to notice. Jessica asked me yesterday if we were dating." "What did you tell her?" "That we're just friends, obviously, but Araminta—" He finally looked at me, and I saw uncertainty there. "You're married. You have a kid. I'm not sure I'm cut out for this kind of situation." Panic clawed at my throat. Darren was my escape, my reminder that I was still desirable, still worth pursuing. Without him, I'd be trapped in my beige, suburban life forever. "My marriage is basically over," I said quickly. "Simon and I are like strangers living in the same house. We haven't been truly happy in years." It was an exaggeration, but not entirely false. Simon and I had fallen into a comfortable routine that felt more like friendship than passion. When had we stopped really talking? When had we stopped seeing each other as more than co-parents and bill splitters? "But you haven't left him," Darren pointed out. "It's complicated. There's Mila to think about, and the house and—" I reached across the table to touch his hand. "I need time to figure things out. Can you give me that?" Darren stared down at our joined hands for a long moment. "I care about you, Araminta. More than I should, but I won't be the other man forever." "You're not the other man," I insisted. "You're the man who makes me remember who I used to be." When I got home that evening, only an hour late this time, I found Simon in the kitchen, helping Mila with her homework. They looked up when I walked in, identical expressions of polite interest on their faces. "How was work, sweetheart?" Simon asked, the endearment sounding forced. "Exhausting," I replied honestly. "What are you two working on?" "Math problems," Mila said quietly. "Daddy's really good at explaining fractions." I felt like an outsider looking in on their little bubble of domestic contentment. When had I become the visitor in my own home? "I saved you some dinner," Simon said, nodding toward a covered plate by the stove. "Mila picked the recipe, chicken parmesan." My daughter beamed at me. "It's your favorite, right, Mummy?" I couldn't remember the last time I'd told her what my favorite meal was. "It looks delicious, baby. Thank you." As I reheated the food, I listened to Simon patiently explaining denominators to Mila, his voice warm and encouraging. He was a good father, I had to admit. A good husband, too, in his steady, reliable way. So why did I feel so empty when I looked at him? My phone buzzed with another text from Darren. "Sorry if I seem distant today. You mean a lot to me." I typed back quickly. "You mean a lot to me, too. We'll figure this out." "Work again?" Simon asked, appearing beside me at the counter. I nearly dropped my phone. "Just confirming tomorrow's schedule." Simon nodded, but his eyes lingered on my phone screen before I could lock it. "Busy day ahead." "Aren't they all?" That night, as I lay in bed listening to Simon's breathing, I thought about Darren's words. "I won't be the other man forever." The implication was clear. Either I chose him, or he'd walk away. But choosing him meant blowing up everything I'd built with Simon, destroying Mila's sense of security, admitting that I'd thrown away a decent marriage for the thrill of feeling wanted again. I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. My phone lit up with one final text from Darren. "Sweet dreams, beautiful." I smiled in the darkness and typed back, "Sweet dreams." Beside me, Simon shifted in his sleep, and I wondered if he was dreaming about the woman I used to be. The one who came home for dinner, who read bedtime stories, who didn't need validation from other men to feel alive. That woman felt like a stranger now. The monthly family dinner at my mother's house had always been a minefield, but lately, it felt more like walking into active combat. Janet Bell's dining room was too small for the crowd we always drew. Me and Simon, Lila and her husband Mark, my parents, and Simon's mother Gwen, who had a talent for making every gathering feel like a cross-examination. "Araminta looks wonderful," Mom announced as we settled around the table, her voice carrying that defensive edge it got whenever Gwen was present. "Doesn't she look wonderful, Ellis?" Dad mumbled his agreement, already focused on carving the roast. He'd perfected the art of avoiding family drama by concentrating intensely on whatever task was in front of him. "She does look different," Gwen said carefully, her sharp eyes taking in my new dress, another outfit I'd bought with Darren in mind. "Very put together. Must be all that overtime you've been working." The way she said overtime made it sound like a dirty word. I forced a smile. The marketing world never sleeps. "Neither do marketing executives, apparently," Gwen continued. "Simon mentioned you've been getting home quite late most nights." Simon shifted uncomfortably beside me, cutting his meat with more force than necessary. "Mom, it's fine," I interrupted, shooting him a look. "I don't mind talking about my career success. Some of us are actually trying to build something meaningful." The dig hit its mark. Simon's jaw tightened, and Gwen's eyebrows shot up. Lila coughed awkwardly into her wine glass. "Simon builds things too," Gwen said coolly. "Bridges, roads, infrastructure that actually matters to people's daily lives." "Of course," I replied sweetly. "Though I suppose it's easier to build bridges when you're home by 5:30 every day." "Araminta," Mom jumped in, sensing the tension escalating. "Tell everyone about that big campaign you're working on." I launched into an elaborate description of the marketing project, embellishing details and making it sound far more glamorous and demanding than it actually was. As I talked, I noticed Simon watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read: disappointment, resignation. "It sounds very time-consuming," Gwen said when I finished. "I hope you're not missing too much of Mila's childhood." The comment hit like a slap. "I'm providing for my daughter's future. By working 60-hour weeks? Some of us don't have the luxury of staying home and judging other people's choices," I snapped. The table went dead silent. Gwen had been a working mother herself, raising Simon mostly alone after her husband died young. My comment was unfair, and we all knew it. "I think," Dad said loudly, "this roast turned out particularly well. Janet, what's your secret?" Mum launched into a detailed explanation of her cooking process, but the damage was done. The rest of dinner passed in stilted conversation and forced politeness. Simon barely spoke, answering direct questions with monosyllables and avoiding eye contact with everyone. When it came time to leave, Gwen pulled Simon aside in the hallway while I was helping Mum clear dishes. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I caught fragments. "Need to protect yourself," and "Mila needs stability." "What was that about?" I asked as we drove home. "Nothing important," Simon replied, but his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Your mother has never liked me." "That's not true." "Please, she's been looking for reasons to criticize me since the day we met." I stared out the passenger window at the familiar suburban streets. "I'm sorry if my career ambitions threaten her traditional values." Simon was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to respond. Finally he said, "Is that really what you think this is about? Career ambitions?" Something in his tone made my stomach clench. "What else would it be about?" "I don't know, Araminta, you tell me." The rest of the drive passed in silence. At home, Simon went straight to his office and closed the door. I found Mila in the living room, playing with her dolls. "Did you have fun at Grandma's?" I asked, settling beside her on the couch. "Grandma Gwen was sad," Mila said without looking up from her toys. "She kept looking at Daddy like he was hurt." "Grown-ups have complicated feelings sometimes, sweetheart." "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "What? No, baby, why would you ask that?" "Katie's parents got divorced last year. She said they used to fight at dinner, and her daddy looked sad all the time." Mila finally looked at me, her dark eyes serious beyond her years. "Daddy looks sad now too." I pulled her into my lap, breathing in her strawberry shampoo scent. "Daddy and I aren't getting divorced. We're just..." Working through some things. Do you still love him? The innocence of the question broke something inside me. Did I still love Simon? I loved the life we'd built, the security he provided, the way he was with Mila. But was I in love with him? When had I stopped feeling that flutter of excitement when he walked into a room? Of course I love Daddy, I said finally, and I love you more than anything in the world. That night, I lay awake thinking about Gwen's pointed comments and Simon's silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Darren. Thinking about you. Hope your family dinner went better than mine. I started to type a response, then stopped. Mila's question echoed in my mind. Do you still love him? I love the idea of Simon, the steady provider, the devoted father, the man who'd never hurt me or leave me. But I was in love with the way Darren made me feel. Desired, exciting, alive. Was it wrong to want both? To keep the security of my marriage while finding passion elsewhere? My phone buzzed again. Sweet dreams. Beautiful. I typed back, sweet dreams. Beside me, Simon shifted in his sleep, and for a moment I thought about reaching for him, about trying to bridge the growing distance between us. But then I thought about Darren's smile, about the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating woman in the world, and I turned away. Some lines, once crossed, were impossible to uncross. The evidence was everywhere if you knew how to look for it. Simon had always been methodical, detail-oriented. It's what made him a good engineer. But now that careful attention was focused on me, and I could feel the weight of his scrutiny like a physical presence. Daddy, why don't you and Mommy eat dinner together anymore? Mila asked one evening, as Simon helped her with her spelling homework. I was getting ready for another work event, touching up my makeup in the hallway mirror where I could hear their conversation. Mommy's very busy with work right now, Simon replied carefully. Sometimes grown-ups have different schedules. But you used to wait for her. The accusation in my daughter's voice made my hand shake as I applied lipstick. She was right. Simon used to hold dinner until I got home, no matter how late I was running. Now he fed Mila at 6 and left a covered plate for me on the counter. I know, Princess. Things are just complicated right now. I appeared in the doorway, purse in hand. I should be home by 10 tonight. Don't wait up. Simon looked up from Mila's worksheet, and I saw something flicker across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or resignation. Another client dinner. Team-building event, I corrected. You know how important company culture is. Right, company culture. He turned back to Mila's homework. Drive safe. The dismissal stung more than I expected. There was a time when Simon would have kissed me goodbye, would have asked about my evening, would have shown some interest in my supposed work events. Now he barely looked up when I left. At the Willow Cafe, Darren was waiting with a bottle of wine and that crooked smile that never failed to make my pulse quicken. He'd chosen a corner booth, dimly lit and private. You look stressed, he said as I slid in across from him. Family drama, I replied, accepting the glass of wine he poured. My husband's been distant lately. Maybe he's finally realizing what he's been taking for granted. The comment should have made me feel validated, but instead it left me uneasy. Was Simon taking me for granted, or was I just looking for justification for my behavior? Tell me about your day, I said, changing the subject. Anything more interesting than quarterly reports and budget meetings? Darren launched into a story about a difficult client, his hands gesturing animatedly as he talked. I found myself studying his face, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the confident set of his shoulders. He was handsome in an obvious way that Simon wasn't. Simon's appeal was quieter, more subtle, reliable rather than exciting. You're not listening, Darren said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Sorry, I'm just distracted. By your husband? The question hung in the air between us. By everything. This whole situation is getting complicated. It doesn't have to be. Darren's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. You could leave him. We could be together properly. It's not that simple. There's Mila and the house and you're scared. He wasn't wrong. The thought of blowing up my entire life, of starting over, of being the woman who destroyed her family for an affair, it terrified me. What if I left Simon and things with Darren didn't work out? What if I was throwing away something real for something that was just infatuation? I need more time, I said finally. Darren's expression shifted, disappointment flickering across his features. How much more time, Araminta? Because I'm starting to feel like I'm just your escape from a marriage you're too comfortable to leave. The accusation hit too close to home. That's not fair. Isn't it? He pulled his hand away from mine. When was the last time we talked about a future together? When was the last time you mentioned actually leaving him? I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came. Because he was right, I'd been having my cake and eating it too, enjoying the thrill of our affair while maintaining the security of my marriage. I should go, I said, reaching for my purse. Araminta, wait. But I was already standing, my cheeks burning with embarrassment and anger. I need to think. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. When I pulled into the driveway, I was surprised to see all the lights in the house still on. It was only 9:30, earlier than I'd been getting home in weeks. Inside, I found Simon in his office, laptop open, surrounded by papers. He looked up when I appeared in the doorway, and I noticed the dark circles under his eyes. "You're home early," he said neutrally. Meeting ended sooner than expected. I hovered in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. "What are you working on?" "Just some paperwork." Simon's tone was carefully casual, but something in his expression made my stomach clench. "How was your evening?" "Fine, productive." The lies came automatically now. "Is Mila asleep?" "About an hour ago. She asked me to tell you good night." Guilt twisted in my chest. "I'll check on her." I climbed the stairs on shaking legs, pausing outside Mila's room. She was curled up under her princess comforter, her dark hair spread across the pillow. On her nightstand was another drawing from school, this one showing a house with only 2 stick figures visible through the windows. Daddy and Mila, sitting at a table. Mommy was nowhere to be seen. Back downstairs, Simon was still in his office, but now he was on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. "I understand," he was saying. "Yes, I think that would be best. Can we meet tomorrow?" He hung up quickly when he saw me in the doorway. "Just work," he said, but his eyes didn't meet mine. "At 9:30 at night?" "Emergency consultation. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I'd been using the same excuse for weeks. But hearing it from Simon felt different. Wrong somehow. He wasn't the type to lie, wasn't the type to have secret phone calls or work late without explanation. "Simon," I started, then stopped. What could I say? That I was sorry, that I wanted to fix things, that I was having an affair but it didn't mean anything. "Yeah?" "Nothing. I'm just tired. I'm going to bed." He nodded, already turning back to his laptop. "I'll be up in a few minutes." But when I woke up at 3 a.m., his side of the bed was still empty. I found him asleep in his office chair, his laptop open to what looked like a legal website. The screen had gone dark, but I could make out fragments of text, divorce proceedings, and custody arrangements. My blood turned to ice. I backed out of the room quietly, my heart hammering against my ribs. Simon was researching divorce lawyers. The careful, methodical man I'd married was building a case against me. Back in bed, I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No sweet dreams text from Darren. No flirtatious good morning message to look forward to. For the first time in months, I felt truly alone. The law office smelled like leather and disappointment. I sat across from Simon and his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, who looked like she could dismantle my life with a few well-chosen words. The conference room was all dark wood and intimidating diplomas, designed to make people like me feel small and exposed. "I don't understand why we need lawyers involved," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Can't we discuss this at home like adults? Simon's expression was unreadable. We're past that point, Araminta. The formality in his voice, my full name instead of the casual Min he'd used for years, felt like a slap. Patricia Chen shuffled through a stack of papers, her movements precise and deliberate. Mrs. Vey, she began, my client has some concerns about the current state of your marriage. He's hoping we can address them in a civilized manner. Concerns? I forced a laugh. Simon, what concerns? I've been working hard to advance my career, to provide for our family. Since when is ambition a crime? It's not about ambition, Simon said quietly. It's about honesty. The word hung in the air like an accusation. I could feel sweat beading at my hairline despite the air conditioning. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. Simon's voice was calm, controlled, but I caught the tremor underneath. I'm stating facts. Patricia Chen slid a manila folder across the table toward me. Perhaps you'd like to review these documents before we continue. My hands shook as I opened the folder. The first page was a printout of text messages, my text messages with Darren. Flirtatious exchanges, plans for secret meetings, intimate conversations that no married woman should be having with another man. Can't wait to see you tonight. That little cafe you mentioned. You make me feel alive again. My marriage is basically over. The blood drained from my face as I flipped through page after page of evidence. Bank statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to with Simon. Hotel receipts. Credit card bills for lingerie I'd never worn at home. Even parking tickets from outside Darren's apartment building. Where did you get these? I whispered. Does it matter? Patricia Chen asked coolly. The question is whether you dispute their authenticity. I couldn't dispute them because they were real. Every damning word, every secret meeting, every lie I'd told, it was all there in black and white, impossible to deny or explain away. Simon, I turned to my husband, desperation creeping into my voice. Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. What does it look like, Araminta? His eyes met mine for the first time since I'd entered the room, and I saw pain there, deep and raw. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife has been having an affair for months while lying to me and our daughter. It's not an affair, I said quickly. It's just emotional. We're friends. Friends don't meet at hotels, Patricia Chen observed. We never stayed at hotels together, I protested. Those receipts, they must be from work trips or... The Riverside Inn is 15 minutes from your house, Simon said quietly. You charged lunch there 6 times in the past month, on days when you told me you were working late. The walls felt like they were closing in. Simon, please. I know this looks bad, but I can explain everything. I was confused, lonely. You've been so distant lately, and I just needed... I've been distant. For the first time, emotion cracked through Simon's controlled facade. I've been trying to hold our family together while you disappeared into your secret life. I've been taking care of our daughter, making excuses for why Mommy misses dinner again, why Mommy can't read bedtime stories anymore. That's not fair. What's not fair is what you've put Mila through. Simon's voice broke slightly. Do you know she asked me if we were getting divorced? An 8-year-old shouldn't have to worry about her family falling apart. Guilt crashed over me in waves. I thought about Mila's drawings, the way she'd been clinging to Simon, the sadness in her eyes when I missed another bedtime. I never meant for any of this to happen, I said, tears starting to fall. I love you, Simon. I love our family. Then why? The question came out as barely a whisper. Why risk everything we built together? Why choose him over us? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't make everything worse, because I was bored, because Darren made me feel young and desirable, because I wanted the excitement of being pursued. None of those reasons seemed worth destroying my marriage over, but here we were. Mrs. Vey, Patricia Chen interrupted, my client is prepared to offer you a generous settlement, joint custody of Mila, with primary residence remaining with Mr. Vey, given the stability of his living situation. You would retain your car and personal belongings, plus a fair division of liquid assets. Settlement? The word came out as a croak. You're divorcing me. Simon nodded slowly. I can't live like this anymore, Araminta. I can't pretend everything's fine while you're building a relationship with another man. I won't put Mila through that kind of instability. But what about counseling? What about working through our problems? What problems? Simon asked. I thought we were happy. I thought we were building something together. Apparently, I was the only one who felt that way. The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. I had been happy, or at least content, before I started looking for something more. Simon had been a good husband, faithful, reliable, loving in his quiet way. I was the one who'd decided it wasn't enough. I need time to think, I said desperately. This is all happening too fast. You've had months to think, Patricia Chen replied. Every time you chose to meet with Mr. Lowe instead of coming home to your family, you were making a choice. Now it's time to face the consequences of those choices. Simon stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. I'll be staying at my mother's for a few days while you process this. Mila will be with me. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away. I'm providing her with a stable environment while we figure out custody arrangements. Simon's voice was gentle but firm. You're welcome to see her any time. Just call first. As they gathered their papers and prepared to leave, I sat frozen in my chair, staring at the evidence of my betrayal spread across the conference table. In a few short months, I'd gone from having everything, a loving husband, a beautiful daughter, a comfortable life, to sitting alone in a lawyer's office, facing the wreckage of my own making. Simon, wait, I called as he reached the door. He turned back, and for a moment I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. Maybe he was waiting for me to fight for our marriage, to choose him over Darren, to prove that our family was worth saving. But the words stuck in my throat. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure I could give up the excitement Darren brought to my life, even if it meant losing everything else. Simon's expression shifted from hope to resignation. Goodbye, Araminta. The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving me alone with the evidence of my choices and the crushing weight of what I'd lost. The final hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. I sat in the courthouse corridor, watching lawyers in expensive suits hurry past with their briefcases and their confident strides. My own attorney, a tired-looking man named Robert Hayes, who I'd hired with money borrowed from my parents, sat beside me reviewing his notes one last time. Remember, he said quietly, we're not trying to contest the divorce at this point. We're focusing on custody arrangements and asset division. Try to appear stable, responsible. Stable and responsible, two things I apparently hadn't been for months. The irony wasn't lost on me. Through the courthouse windows, I could see Simon arriving with Patricia Chen and his mother Gwen. He was wearing his best suit, the navy one he'd worn to our wedding 8 years ago. The sight of it made my chest tight with memories of better times. Mrs. Vey, a bailiff appeared at my elbow. Judge Martinez is ready for you. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic legal theaters I'd seen on TV. Judge Martinez was a stern-looking woman in her 50s who reviewed our case file with the efficiency of someone who'd seen too many marriages fall apart. This is a petition for dissolution of marriage, she began, with contested custody arrangements. Mr. Vey, you're seeking primary physical custody of the minor child, Mila Vey, age 8. Yes, Your Honor, Patricia Chen replied. My client has been the primary caregiver for the past several months, while Mrs. Vey has been pursuing other interests. The euphemism stung. Other interests. As if my affair was a hobby, like pottery or book club. Mrs. Vey, Judge Martinez turned to me. Do you contest this arrangement? I looked at Robert Hayes, who nodded encouragingly. Your Honor, I love my daughter very much. I may have made mistakes in my marriage, but I've never been anything but a devoted mother. The evidence suggests otherwise, Patricia Chen interjected, standing to address the judge. Mrs. Vey has missed numerous bedtimes, school events, and family dinners over the past 6 months. She's been conducting an extramarital affair that has caused significant emotional distress to the child. Objection, Robert Hayes said weakly. There's no evidence that the child was aware of any alleged affair. Actually, there is. Patricia Chen opened her briefcase and withdrew a folder. Your Honor, we have a letter from Mila's school counselor expressing concern about the child's emotional state. She's been acting out in class, her grades have dropped, and she's expressed anxiety about her parents' relationship. My heart sank as Judge Martinez reviewed the letter. I thought I'd been so careful, so discreet. I never imagined that my actions were affecting Mila so obviously that her teachers noticed. Mrs. Vey, the judge said, can you explain these concerns about your daughter's well-being? I stood on shaking legs. Your Honor, it's true that I've been working longer hours recently. My career is important to me, and I was trying to advance professionally. I never intended for it to impact my parenting. Working longer hours, Patricia Chen repeated. Is that what you call meeting with Darren Lowe at various restaurants and hotels throughout the city? The courtroom fell silent. Even Robert Hayes looked surprised. Apparently, Patricia Chen had evidence we hadn't seen yet. Your Honor, she continued, we have credit card statements, text message records, and witness testimony confirming that Mrs. Vey has been conducting an affair for approximately 6 months. During this time, Mr. Vey has been the sole caregiver for their daughter, handling school pickup, homework assistance, bedtime routines, and all other parental responsibilities. Judge Martinez studied the documents Patricia Chen presented. Mrs. Vey, do you dispute these allegations? I wanted to lie, to deny everything, to somehow spin this into a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming, and I was tired of lying. No, Your Honor, I don't dispute them. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. Robert Hayes shot me a warning look, but it was too late to take it back. I see. Judge Martinez made some notes on her legal pad. And Mr. Lowe, is he prepared to provide a stable home environment for the child? Mr. Lowe is not seeking custody, Patricia Chen clarified. He's actually ended his relationship with Mrs. Vey and requested no further contact. The words hit me like a physical blow. Darren had abandoned me completely, leaving me to face the consequences of our affair alone. All those promises about caring for me, all those declarations of wanting to be together, they'd evaporated the moment things got complicated. Your Honor, I said desperately, I know I made mistakes, but I'm still Mila's mother. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Counseling, therapy, whatever you think is appropriate. Judge Martinez looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Mrs. Vey, the court appreciates your willingness to seek help. However, our primary concern is the welfare of the child. Based on the evidence presented, it appears that Mr. Vey has been providing the stable, consistent care that Mila needs. She turned to Simon. Mr. Vey, what custody arrangement are you proposing? Simon stood, his voice steady and calm. Your Honor, I'm not trying to keep Mila away from her mother. I'm requesting primary physical custody with generous visitation rights for Mrs. Vey. Weekends, holidays, summer vacation. I want Mila to have a relationship with both parents. Even in the midst of our divorce, Simon was being fair, reasonable, generous. It made me feel even worse about what I'd done to him. The court finds that arrangement reasonable, Judge Martinez said. Primary physical custody is awarded to Mr. Vey, with visitation rights for Mrs. Vey, as outlined in the proposed agreement. Mrs. Vey, you'll have supervised visits initially, transitioning to unsupervised visits after completing a parenting class and counseling program. Supervised visits, like I was a danger to my own daughter. The judge continued with the asset division. I would keep my car and personal belongings, plus half of our savings account. The house would go to Simon, since Mila would be living there. It was fair, more than fair considering the circumstances, but it felt like watching my entire life get divided up and distributed. This court grants the dissolution of marriage between Simon Vey and Araminta Vey. Judge Martinez concluded. The decree will be final in 30 days. Just like that, it was over. 8 years of marriage dissolved in a Tuesday morning hearing that lasted less than an hour. As people filed out of the courtroom, Simon approached me. Up close, I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of the past months etched in the lines around his mouth. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said quietly. "Are you?" The question came out sharper than I intended. "Because it seems like you had everything planned out pretty thoroughly." Simon's expression hardened. "I spent months hoping you'd choose us, Araminta. I kept thinking you'd realize what you were throwing away and come home, but you never did." He was right, and we both knew it. Even now, part of me was thinking about Darren, wondering if there was still a chance for us once this was all over. "I want to see Mila," I said. "Of course, she's staying with my mother this week, but we can arrange something for this weekend." "Supervised visits," I said bitterly. "Only until you complete the programs the court ordered. It's not permanent, Araminta. You can still be a good mother to her." The kindness in his voice broke something inside me. Even after everything I'd put him through, Simon was still trying to protect me, still hoping I could be the woman Mila deserved. As I walked out of the courthouse alone, I thought about the choices that had led me here. 6 months ago, I'd had everything: a loving husband, a beautiful daughter, a comfortable life. I'd thrown it all away for the thrill of feeling desired by another man, for the excitement of secret meetings and stolen kisses. Now Darren was gone, my marriage was over, and I was facing the prospect of seeing my daughter every other weekend like a stranger in her life. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Lila. "How did it go? Call me when you're ready to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "It's over. I lost everything." The response came quickly. "You lost some things, but you can still choose what comes next." Standing on the courthouse steps in the October sunshine, watching Simon drive away to pick up our daughter from school, a routine that would no longer include me, I realized that Lila was right. I'd made choices that destroyed my marriage and hurt the people I loved most. But I could still choose how to move forward. I could choose to be bitter and resentful, to blame Simon for not fighting harder for our marriage, to convince myself that I was the victim in this story. Or I could choose to take responsibility for my actions, to work on becoming the mother Mila deserved, to rebuild some version of the life I'd thrown away. For the first time in months, the choice seemed clear.